Hello, in this video I'm going to create a part 2 to a previous video that I did about setting up a character for trials, and I showed you in the first video how easy it is to get a 109,000 parse with no trials gear. In this video I'm going to show you uh, a step further and a little bit more advancing into that, how you can optimize further once you get into trials and all that and you start collecting trials gear. I'm going to show you how you should set up for ad pulls and boss fights once you start collecting gear pieces, what sets you should pair with each other and whatnot. Um, so if you're just starting out with what I've talked about in the first video, you can run that until you start collecting more optimal gear, but the gear setup that I showed you in video 1 is more than sufficient to run veteran trials with, because your critical damage is on point with penetration, and you've got cleave damage that is more than ample to handle that content until you're able to add in some more tools to your kit. So let's get into it. First off, this character that I'm on right now is basically the same of what I was using in the first video, 64 points into stamina, uh, the Thief Mundus stone, and this is an Arcanist base with Herald of the Tome, Adric's Spear from the Templar, and the Assassination skill line from the Nightblade. So this is the easiest one to keep your damage up. As I said in the previous video, you can basically keep the Herald of the Tome, Assassination together, and then flex this line out. If you're not on an Arcanist or a Nightblade, then choose one to keep and then grab this line and this line, and you should be in the ballpark of every one of them with this. So again, I have the two-handed skill line, the dual wield skill line, and the destruction staff. Um, I didn't go over in the first video very well the implementation of the destruction staff, and I will cover that here a little bit better in this video. But this is going to be a fairly detailed video, so if I happen to get a little long-winded in some sections, I am going to implement chapters on the video, so you can skip ahead if you want to. But I do want to make sure that I make this video thorough and that everybody gets information that they need out of this. So there may be some information that I'm covering that you kind of is redundant for you. So just keep that in mind. This is kind of trying to cover everybody's needs in one video. So I will put chapters in case that's not your thing on what I'm talking about, so that you can skip ahead if you want. But as you can see, I've got my skills purchased pretty much the same way. I'll go over those really quickly. Front bar, I have Quick Loke, Blazing Spear, Exhausting Fate Carver, Cephaliarch's Flail, Reaper's Mark, Flawless Dawnbreaker, and as I explained in the first video, why we've got these all here. Inspired Scholarship, Concealed Weapon for the passive Minor Expedition. Here is maybe a little bit different setup. I've got Bloody Thirst here, which is the Soul Burst skill from Scribing, and I have it set to bleed damage and damage over time. You can choose whichever one you want there. I'm just implementing bleed here so that I can possibly proc the hemorrhage status effect. But the most important thing, and the reason why I have this, is because I'm getting the minor endurance on this skill here to help with sustain. So I'll have the major versions of that from the tripod, and this will help get another 15% on top of that. Then we've got the back bar infused weapon skill proccing the arena weapon of elemental blockade. And then we've got Merciless Resolve giving me major prophecy and major savagery on both bars. And then I've got the Languid Eye. So I will go through different setups here. Skills will be changed out, CP and gear sets. But I'm going to show you how to set up the Wizard's Wardrobe in here as well. I know I've done that in previous videos, but I'm going to go through a really detailed edition of that. So before we start off, I got to put my gear pieces on. And so I'm going to start by turning on the add-ons that I recommend using for trials. And so where you need to go for this is, actually, before we do the add-ons, let's do the CP really quickly, just so I can get done with the overall coverage of the build. So the green tree slottables are Steed's Blessing, Master Gatherer, Gifted Rider, and War Mount. And then you're going to want to fill in as many passives as you can. A little trick here, if you don't pay for traveling like I do, I only fill this into 10. I don't fill in the entire thing because it's wasted CP points. I virtually never pay to travel, so it doesn't change the cost of your way shrine. If you're always jumping to a house for free, then it's always free. So don't waste your points on something like this, filling it all the way. All you need to do is fill in the 10 so you can advance up the tree here, and then that'll help save your points so you don't have to spend as many on a dead location there. So moving over to the red tree, we're going to cover this first because this is going to be a lot more stationary. In the blue tree is where we're going to have the most movement. I recommend slotting Boundless Vitality, Fortified, and then, as I said in the first video, if you are DPSing in a trial, you need to slot Spirit Mastery. That is very important to slot this and keep this on your bar at all times. And the reason is because, let's take this build that you're on right now. You're DPSing 109,000 damage per second, and it roughly takes you 6 seconds to resurrect or be resurrected. So that's over 500,000 damage that is on the table, or I should say off the table, while you or somebody else is laying there dead. And the longer that lasts, the worse it gets. And then when somebody has to stop what they are doing and resurrect you, then that's double that number. So you're talking about over 1 million DPS per second, or excuse me, for the duration of the resurrection. Even if you were to just jump on it right away, that's over 1 million damage off the table. So it's really important that you shorten that time as much as possible. Keep this slotted. The reason why your tanks and healers are not meant to or expected to resurrect, the tanks are taunting, handling mechanics, chaining in enemies, and keeping them off of you. And they need healing and support from the healers, and the healer can stand and heal you while you're doing the resurrection. If the healer stops healing you to get a resurrection, you might die because you're no longer getting healed. Or the tank might die because they're not getting healed during a mechanic or whatnot. So the best scenario is to have DPS stop DPSing, get everybody back up to full team squad, go back to your damaging once everybody's alive. And the reason why you slot this is because it speeds up your resurrection by 33%. This is an absolute must have it slotted at all times. The other fourth CP node that I'm going to recommend is Celerity. This gives you 10% movement speed at all times, regardless of whether or not you're in combat. Helps you get out of mechanics. It helps you move in between ad pulls, all of that. So those are the 4 that I recommend slotting. In a trial, you don't want to waste your time slotting either Siphoning Spells or Bloody Renewal, because this only procs if you get the kill on the enemy. Now that may happen, every once in a while, but the frequency of that procking and activating is not going to be nearly as often as you think. These are both much better in a dungeon or in solo instances where you're going to be getting the kill. So I would caution on slotting these in too many cases. So stick with those 4 that I suggest, and you should be good, and you shouldn't have to move as much around. So for the blue tree, we're going to have 3 staples that don't ever move on this build. Now, I want to reiterate, I'm talking about this setup in general. Do not assume that this is a jack of all trades, only do this for all builds. That's not the case. I'm speaking to the build that I covered in part 1. So If you haven't seen part 1, I'm going to put the link in the description so you can go find that and watch the video and kind of get up to speed. So first off, we're going to slot Biting Aura for the AoE, and then we're going to slot Master at Arms for the direct damage buff. Then this next CP node is a must. We need to slot Fighting Finesse. And the reason why is because we need to make sure that we can hit the critical damage cap easily. Because this build, you will basically make it easy mode for your team to be at 125% critical damage at all times. I have done a video on this. I will link the playlist of my DPS pages, or I should say videos, in the description. You can locate that video there. I will put the playlist video, or the playlist link in the description so you can locate that. This is a necessity, and then the other component that goes with this is you need your tank in the group to wear, or at least one of them, to wear Lucent Echoes to increase critical damage by 11%. Once that happens, you can easily be at 125% critical damage at all times without the use of Warhorn, without the use of any other critical damage sets. It's just not necessary. You can run at 125% at all times, as long as you just keep your Crux going and getting the passive for the I believe it's Fated Fortune is the passive. So that's one of the those are the 3 staples. Now we're going to talk about the flexes that we're going to do. If you are running a pug and you are unsure on whether or not you've got off balance, you need to use Wrathful Strikes for boss fights. If you're for sure getting good uptimes with off balance and you know it's present in your group, then instead of Wrathful Strikes for boss fights, you need to use Exploiter, because this is a more powerful damage node. For add pulls, for the 4th one, I recommend putting Occult Overload. This will help burn through your add pulls. If every DPS has this on in your group, you're going to have the enemies explode with Oblivion damage, and in addition to that, they will also have a status effect applied to the enemies that are in the area, and this can happen every 1 second. So it's almost like a mini Azure Blight Reaper setup that is going to explode except for it happens when the enemies die rather than just ticking on stacks of blight seeds. So it's kind of a miniature version of that in a way, so keep that in mind. This will help. If every DPS runs this, then it's going to proc all the time. Don't wear this one in a boss fight, because you're not going to have as many adds come up to proc this, and it does only have a 4-meter radius. So if you do kill an add that comes out for a boss fight and it's not within 4 meters of the boss, then it's really not doing as much. I would recommend just using Fighting Finesse if you're unsure about off balance, or going into getting Exploiter if you know it is there. So okay, that is the CP. So now we are going to go into the gear sets. Instead of the Deadly Strike and Tide-Born setup that I used in the first video, I'm going to show you a little bit more advanced setup. Now, again, if you only have the Tide-Born and Deadly Strike video, or excuse me, the gear sets, then you can leave those on and you don't need to necessarily move anything around as much. But I'm going to show a little bit more advanced of what you can work toward, and then what you can start implementing when you want to further optimize your setups. So we're going to start with a trash setup, because I've already got my CP slotted here for that. So we're going to start with the trash setup that I recommend. So we're going to go with a front bar Deadly Strike on the daggers, 1 Nirnhoned and 1 charged, and then the back bar I'm going to set up with the Maelstroms in Perfected Inferno. Real quick sidebar here, if you do not have the perfected version of these, it is not as pivotal as you think. The only thing that it adds is the offensive penetration for this. Another really quick sprinkle in of extra optimization you can do is you can also build a lightning staff. And if you don't know about off balance for your group or anything like that, you can implement it right here by putting this on instead of an inferno, and you will give your entire group off balance with 100% uptime just by keeping this wall of elements out there. So that's a really good thing that you can build also. And then you can talk to your raid lead and say, hey, do we have off balance, yes or no? The reason why you want to confirm that is the Inferno staff typically does more damage. However, if you can provide your entire group of all 8 DPS and an off balance buff, that is going to compensate for the damage difference if you were just to compare these side by side. So take a look at that in your group. If it's necessary, you may want to put the lightning staff on instead. So trying to not go too fast here, but I do want to try and go fairly quickly here so I can cover everything. So we're going to put a light piece for the helmet because we're working with 2 medium sets here for the rest of the 5-piece set. So we're going to go with a light 1-piece critical chance is what you need here. It doesn't necessarily have to be Slime Craw. Other choices could be Zons. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the other ones, but Zons from Scale Collar Peak, and then Slimecraw is really the easiest one to get because it's just from Wayrest Sewers 1. So go with the Slimecraw. It's a good one to keep on hand. And then we're going to put Perfected Ansuul's Torment for the 5-piece trial set. And why we're doing this is because the Ansuul's Torment is going to buff your damage across your build all the way, and it's more of an AoE damage buff. So now we're going to put Deadly Strike on the shoulder piece. The waist piece is going to be Deadly Strike, and the hands are going to be Deadly Strike. And then we're going to put Ansuul on the legs and the feet. And we're obviously going to have the Velothi necklace, and then the 2 Ansuul rings here. One small little sidebar here. I recommend building your trials gear locations on the jewelry and the feet, legs, and chest. And why I recommend that is it just helps you simplify where your gear sets are. And another reason why I do this is because when you're building with perfected trials gear, the jewelry already comes in chromium. So you can build this without having to gold out your jewelry, and then the mythic is already at gold value. So you literally don't need to buy chromiums ever if you build with trials gear on your jewelry. So keep that in mind. That's a little hack that I do. And if you keep the trials gear all in the same gear slots, if you want to change out your trials gear for another trial set, you know exactly which pieces to build and you know exactly where they are, and you can just change out where you need to. But this is how I have that set up. So the 2 rings, the feet, legs, and chest. So just think about it as the big armor pieces with the 2 rings. And then I have Deadly Strike front barred with the daggers, shoulders, waist, and hands. So the 2 small pieces here and the shoulders. Okay, so this is the add pulls setup. The only difference that I do for skills is I will change this back bar from an Inferno Staff to a Greatsword so that I can use the Stampede. And then this skill here, the Reaper's Mark, is not necessarily as good in boss fights. So I may change that out for another Fighter's Guild skill to get extra damage on the front bar, something like that. But it's not as pivotal. If you don't change that out, it's not a huge deal. But for the most part, I don't change a whole lot of skills on this build setup because it is so optimal just the way it is. I only change out certain things. So that is the gear pieces for the add pulls setup. The other gear setup that I use, one real quick thing before I advance on from this. The reason I pair Deadly Strike and Ansuul together, in addition to the fact that they buff your AoE damage, another pivotal thing about hitting the penetration cap in your group, if you look over to the right-hand side of the screen and you'll see in the middle section at the very bottom of it, it will say physical penetration. That portion of the build is really vital because of how much penetration I'm putting on this build. This makes the team addressing the armor of the enemy so much easier. And the reason why is because if the tanks only have to put on major and minor major and minor breach, and then they add in either an infused crusher or a runic sunder taunt, then you can be at 100% penetration and you basically got full critical damage, full penetration, and you've got AoE 109,000 damage just ripping through the trial. And the way we do that is we need to figure out, at least on one line item through all of our gear sets, we need at least one line of penetration. And so that's why we choose Ansuul's Torment, because it's got that number 4 penetration line, and Deadly Strike does not have that. So for the boss setup, what I use is Tide-Born, and as you can see for the 4-piece setup, it has the penetration. So we only need one line of that. So the other change out that I use is the different trial set is for boss fights. I recommend the perfected Null Arca set. This is an absolutely killer set for single target fights. And the Tide-Born set buffs both your beam and this sliver shot that hits the boss. So you can get some seriously high damage with a Null Arca shot, and those two sets together work very well because, as you can see, the Null Arca set does not have a line of penetration, and so the Tide-Born set here pairs with that really, really well because it buffs both the beam and the sliver shot, and it puts a line of penetration in there as well. So those are the gear sets that I'm going to be using in the setups here going in ahead. So now we're going to stop for talking about the build for a second, and we're going to talk about add-ons to use in the trial. So I'm going to start off by saying I don't have any add-ons turned on right now. We're going to show you kind of a ground up from the startup how to do this. So if you don't know how to use add-ons or never used them, again, I'll put a playlist in the description. Check out my playlist. I've got a lot of information in there. I will have all my playlists for DPS and add-ons and everything that's pertinent to this video. You're going to go to this menu down here. You go down from the main menu, you go down to options, and then you go into this add-ons menu that it's at the very bottom of that. Now, I will have to say this is only available on the next generation consoles, PS5 and whatever. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head of Xbox One. I can't remember. But it's not on PlayStation 4. Obviously, PC has it. You're going to want to go to the browse add-ons to download your add-ons if you're on console. If you're on PC, then you need to go to the website that is the location that you download these. I apologize, I'm not familiar with that. I don't play on PC, so you'll have to Google that and figure out what website you need to pull these from. But once you get here, you're going to want to sort the add-ons by hitting the sort button, as you can see on the very bottom of the screen, and it will alphabetize these so that you can locate them much easier. Once you install everything that you want to use, then you need to reload UI. Again, at the very bottom, they give you a button to do that. Otherwise, you can back out and do it the standard way if you prefer it that way. Doing the / reload UI in the chat, and that's a command that you can enter. And so what you need to do is make sure that you've got everything installed. I would recommend all of these here are libraries. I would recommend installing absolutely every one of these libraries. And the reason why I say that is because this is information that your add-ons can draw from to help them function. They're also a lot of times dependencies that you need to have for it to even work at all. And so I have absolutely every library installed, and I leave them on at all times, because these right here are not the draw and the problem. It's the actual add-ons themselves that can cause crash issues. And so if you've played around with add-ons and you had UI errors, then that can be the issue there. But I'm going to go over how to turn them on and off right now. So the other menu that you're going to go into is the same area, again, from the options into the add-ons that's at the very bottom. And instead of going browse add-ons, you're going to go to manage add-ons. Now, this is where you look at all of the stuff that you have installed on your system, but it may not be implemented. So as you can see down here, I've got all the libraries checked on. This is not the problem. You can leave these on and use them. These are helpful. You don't have to worry about turning these off. It's the add-ons themselves up here. This is where you got to really make sure you're not running a bunch of stuff at the same time. So if you're going into a trial, only turn on the stuff that you're going to use and that you're going to work with, so that you're not getting UI errors in the fight. You're probably going to die if that happens. Or you'll get just a flat out reload where it turns everything off, and then you come back and you're probably going to be dead in that case as well. So this is where you turn them on and off. All you have to do is you get to the add-on that you want, and at the bottom of the screen you can see where it says enable. You hit that button and it puts a check mark. Now you can do that against all of the ones that you want to turn on, and then when you're done making your selection, again, you have to reload the UI to update the system. Now, again, you don't want to, if your screen looks like this right now, and you're having problems and you're cussing out add-ons, this is exactly why you're having a problem. So you need to not do this. You need to select which add-ons that you're using and only use those. It only takes literally 10 seconds or so to check the ones that you want to use and to turn on those, and then go on with what your activity is. If you do that enough times, you'll just get in the habit of it, and your game is going to work great. You're going to have the extra tools of the add-ons, and then you're going to not have the UI problems. So just take that second to turn the things on and off that you need to, and you'll be fine from there. Okay, so now that I've covered that, now we're going to talk about the add-ons that we're going to use and what I recommend. If you're farming trials where you don't have all the gear collected, auto bind uncollected set items is a great one to use. I've done a video on this if you want to get a deep dive on this add-on. I'm not going to cover what these do very much because I've already done separate videos, but essentially when you pick up a gear set that you've not collected before, this automatically binds it to your sticker book so that you don't have to go into your menu and do it yourself. Next one we're going to talk about is the fancy action bar. This is great for using in content because this helps with a lot of different things. Again, I've covered this this add-on in a video and why it's beneficial. It'll be in my add-ons playlist. If you're interested in that video, go check it out. The next one, harvest map. May not seem like a great idea for trials, but what it does is this is going to put pins in the trial for absolutely every location that a heavy sack or a chest can spawn at. And so what it will do is it'll make it really easy for you to go just check that pin location. If there's something there, great, you found it. If not, move to the next pin after you've killed everything in the room. And this makes it easy for locating that so you don't miss anything. So the next one, more markers. This is an absolutely amazing team coordination add-on that will help your team understand where everything is going to be stacked, where to stack it, all of that. So I would recommend doing this one as well. I've done a video on it if you're curious about a deep dive on that. So the next one we're going to talk about, Quest Mover. This is really nice because it will move the quest that you pick up to wherever you want it to be on the screen. I personally like my quests to be as far up and out of the way as possible so that I don't have as much UI in the way. And so I like to use this to move things out of the way as much as I can. So show equipped. This is another one that I like to use. This helps me verify that I have the correct setups with Wizard's Wardrobe because I like to just spot check really quickly to make sure that my change happened and I am on the correct setup that I need to be. And this is a really nice way to have that in place. And so the last one that we're going to put on, obviously, is the Wizard's Wardrobe. So once we have everything turned on, as you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 add-ons, and that's probably getting to be just about the most you want to run, especially in a trial where there's a lot of information being thrown at the server with 12 people throwing skills and everything. I wouldn't run more than this, honestly, because you're probably going to bog down. So you probably need to just run this and then see how beneficial it is. So I'm going to reload the UI, and you're going to see immediately how different the screen looks once it loads. And as you can see, my action bar now looks different. My mission is up and out of the way, and there's a lot more helpful stuff on the screen. For example, I now have the equipped gear pieces on the screen that you can see on the bottom right hand corner there. So I'm going to travel out of my house so that we've got a little bit more realistic visual, not being in my house, so where you can see all that stuff. But we're going to talk about loading the Wizard's Wardrobe now. And we're going to load the two different setups, a trash setup and a boss setup. And this is just to kind of give you an idea of how to do this where you can have everything just change on the fly automatically, and you can really get everything to just optimize fully without you even have to hardly touch anything. So we're going to go into the Wizard's Wardrobe. Very briefly here, we're going to talk about the top section here, the Wizard's Wardrobe here. This is account-wide. This will do a lot of different things for you, but mainly this will tell the Wizard's Wardrobe, do you want the gear to come on, the skills to come on, the CP to come on, and the food to come on. I would switch all of these on. And then there's also a very important switch here to auto-equip your trash or your boss fight when the zone is detected. This is really important to make sure that it automatically switches for you. And then down here, if you want it to activate in dungeons, you can have it do that, or overland. I would kind of caution using this for overland. I've had some issues where it kind of pulls into the wrong build and kind of messes things up for you. But if you're getting more used to the add-on, then this might not be the problem. So there's a lot of different switches here, but I would say make sure that your charge weapon is on, as well as the automatically repair your armor. And then you can also turn on to re-up your food when that is completed as well. So this is an account-wide setup here, and I would recommend just leaving this on, and then that'll operate those as well. It'll recharge your weapons, your armor will be repaired, and it'll re-up your food automatically as long as you're not in combat. The changes do have to happen out of combat. So let's go into the Wizard's Wardrobe. This is where you're going to set up your builds. There are a lot of different setups, like you can set up here in the miscellaneous. This works for dungeons. There's general, which I usually use this for overland if I'm going to. Trials, arenas, which is Black Rose Prison, and then endless dungeon is Infinite Archive. So what we're going to talk about today is trials, and that's the category. If you go to the subcategory, you can cycle through all the trials they have set up in here. So I'm just going to use Cloudrest for today's demonstrations because there's no add pulls or anything that I need to run into. I just want to demonstrate how this operates automatically so that you don't have to change anything. I'm going to demonstrate how this works. So I'm going to come down here. You can name your build if you want to, so that you can make multiple pages if you want. Just keep in mind, a page is almost like your armory. So page 1, if you want to create more, you can create more like this, and then you'll have multiple pages to cycle through. And then you would name the page, that way you understand what kind of a build it is. So I'm just going to name this Beam, just for the sake of simplicity. So this is the Beam page. As you can see, when you get up to it, it changes. So you know what kind of build it is that you're loading is right here. All right, and so we're going to pretend that that Zamaja is the boss fight, and that the other we'll do the Reliquin is another boss, and we'll do Sororia and Gallenway are trash pulls. Just for the demonstration, they're not actually trash pulls, but we're just going to set them up that way. So we're going to go to Gallenway here, and because we are on the setup that we want, I don't have to do anything other than I need to activate the food that I want it to load. And then the other thing is this wheel here. You need to have this set how you want it for the trial, because when you load the build, it will also pull this in just like this. So as long as you've got everything slotted and ready to go, you want to have your food activated so that the add-on knows what food to put on the build as well. So once you're in this screen here, you're going to come all the way down where it says equip setup, and then you come down to setups. You want to make sure you're going to the correct boss or instance rather, and then you come down to save setup and you save it. Then if you come up here to setups, now on the screen you can see they've got the skills, the gear, as well as the food and the CP. Okay, so as I said, we're going to make Sororia another add pulls, and we're going to save that setup as well, because it's the exact same setup. Now we're going to set up the other two as a boss fight. So I got to back out of here, and I got to make some changes. First off, I'm going to start off with the inventory of switching out the Inferno Staff for the two-handed sword. And then I'm going to go into the skills and change that back bar skill to a Stampede. And then I'm going to go back into the skill or the gear, and I'm going to put on Tide-Born for the front bar set. Front bar flame and poison enchant. both of them charged. As you can see, they're both charged, one flame, one poison. This is an infused weapon damage Maelstrom's Perfected Greatsword. I'm going to change my monster mask to a medium mask because I have a craftable light Tide-Born set. So we're going to put the chest Null Arca piece here, the shoulder Tide-Born medium. The waist is going to be Tide-Born. And then we've got Tide-Born gloves, Null Arca legs, Null Arca feet, and then we're going to have Null Arca jewelry. Okay, so that's the gear and the skills. Now I need to change out. I need to move off of this CP here because we don't want to use this in boss fights. Now I'm going to assume that this is a pug, and so I'm just going to slot Wrathful Strikes instead of Exploiter, just because if we're not getting good up times on off balance, then Exploiter's not as good to run. So now we've changed the CP, the gear, and the skills. And so now, as you can see on my bottom of my screen there, I've got Null Arca and I have Tide-Born Wildstalker equipped on my bar or on my build. So now we're going to go back into the Wizard's Wardrobe, into the same trial, but now we're going to set up Zamaja and Reliquin as boss fights, just for the demonstration of this video. Obviously, these are all bosses. I understand that. I'm just going to go into the trial when we get done, and I'm going to show you how this will switch in between builds based on where you're at. So we're going to go Zamaja, and we're going to save the setup. And then we're going to scroll to Reliquin, and we're going to save the setup. Now, if you look at the far right-hand side of the screen, you can see every instance in that trial has a setup on it. Okay, now before I travel into the trial, I'm going to go into my inventory here, and I'm going to change every piece of gear that I have to be something just weird and goofy, because I want to illustrate exactly how this is going to be a very beneficial setup for you and how you can really benefit from it. So I'm just going to pick a bunch of different gear sets. We're going to just load this up with a bunch of goofy stuff. Okay. So as you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, I've got an amalgamation of just shit on my character. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is I'm now going to travel into Cloudrest. And when I land, it's going to automatically load my build for me. I'm not going to have to touch a thing. Okay, and as you can see at the bottom right-hand corner, I no longer have that amalgamation of gears. It's now put me into my boss fight, as you can see, with the Null Arca and the Wildstalker, and I have my two-handed sword on my back bar. So if you remember when we were talking about the setup, Zamaja and Reliquin are our bosses, so I need to go to Gallenway or Sororia to have it pull the other build. So we'll just go over here to the left. And there you go. I just loaded my Gallonway setup because this is Gallonway. Put my companion way so he doesn't aggro. As you can see on the bottom right hand corner of the screen, I have Ansuul's Torment, Deadly Strike, Perfected Crushing Wall, and Slime Craw. Now, if I want to go into where Zamaja is, as you can watch my screen, when I get close, it registers where I'm at, and it automatically changes that back bar sword. Now, I'll leave the sword on so you can even see it change when I walk over here. There's the other one. As you can see, I'm not doing anything but just walking up to the next instance. This is the power of Wizard's Wardrobe. You can optimize for trash setups and boss fights, and you can elevate your game that much quicker with an automated setup like this, and you can optimize very intricate things, and you can make it happen automatically. So that's just another thing that I wanted to cover in the video to help optimize everything. And I wanted to demonstrate why this is an important and powerful setup to use. Again, if you don't have these trial gear sets, you can still use the Deadly Strike with Tide-Born and then just work your way towards collecting those gear sets. It's not an exact science, but basically I would recommend if you're going to use a trial set and another set, just make sure you have at least one line of penetration on your build. If you're going to do this setup, you're kind of want to try to get in the neighborhood of 7,000 penetration so that your penetration for your team is easy to handle. But this is a really easy setup to use, and it cleaves down a lot of stuff. So I'm going to end this lengthy video here. Hopefully that was helpful and get you a little bit further into stepping into vet trials. Really, this does what if you do the little bit of work to set up this the add-ons, especially with the Wizard's Wardrobe. All you have to do is go in and set up all your pages like I showed you, and it saves it. So the next time you come on, all you have to do is make sure that you're on the right class setup. That's even easier to configure now that we have the respec on the fly. You just want to make sure that the biggest pivotal thing here, everything that you're using has to be purchased so that the Wizard's Wardrobe can just pop it in and on and off. It can't be something like this right here is not purchased. It will not purchase it for you. It has to be ready to use like this. And that's the same with the CP. Your CP nodes have to be readily available. You have to have this ready to purchase, this ready to slot, this ready to slot, and this ready to slot. You can't have something that is like this here that it needs to be filled in. It will not pull and redistribute the stuff for you. You have to have everything ready and to move around. So that's why it's important to try and get levels so that you have that freedom to move stuff around without having to change out a lot of stuff by paying money or whatnot with a champion redistribution. But I'm going to end the video here. If you thought this video was helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Again, I will try to put as much as I can in the description in terms of playlists and videos that I talked about so that you can locate that. If I happen to miss something, check out my YouTube channel. I have a lot of playlists and videos on there, over 280 videos on the Elder Scrolls Online. There's a lot of information on there. I've been playing this game for quite a long time, and I've learned a lot, and I'm trying to help as many people as I can kind of take menu anxiety away and get you into the content that you want to do without the backlash of sometimes there's a lot of butt heads in the community. And so this will kind of get the butt heads to leave you alone if you run this setup, for example. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.